Okay, so we are online. We are starting week 5. What we will be doing today, we'll be working with a new project, and we want to explore menus and lists. All right, so week 5 is my name of the project. Standard settings, right? Phone and tablet, API 15. And I'm starting with empty activity. The same starting point that we used for last week project. Main activities, okay. I'm the name for this activity. So let's start. Okay, I will jump into styles. We'll fix the problem. That is usually preventing us from rendering the layout correctly. Right? Just remember about that when you're doing it yourself, just to test. Did I mess up something? Please. Okay. So we are good. As I said, we'll start with menus. And there are 3 types of menus that you can use in Android. There is one that is always present in your application in the action bar. There is a pop-up menu that can be displayed when you're interacting with the control, and we'll use this text view today to display the pop-up menu. And the third one is called context menu, and it's like a crossover between these two because it is displayed when you interact with a specific view, or you associate it with a specific event, but then it is displayed in the same way that the main menu is displayed. So on the top, using the action bar. Whatever type of the menu we are using, we will be defining it, the structure, the items in the menu, we'll be defining it in XML. So we have to add new type of the resource, right? So I'm doing right click on the resources, going to new, and I want to select Android resource directory to add new folder, right? It is asking me what kind of folder I want. Don't edit the name, just go to the resource type and select menu from this list. Everything else stays as a default. We have this long list here with different qualifiers because we can create resources for specific device or specific localization, specific language, and so on. Right now, what we are doing, we are building a generic menu that will be used on all versions, all versions of our application, right? So this list on the right is empty. I have a new folder. I have to add new menu resource file. So again, right-click on the menu folder, new, and the second from the top should be menu resource file. I'm selecting that. I have to name it. I will use sorry, I will use the same naming convention that is used with layouts. So I will call it main. menu with the underscore. Kind of like Python naming. And again, everything else stays the same. Okay. And here it is. When you edit menu, it shows you the generic screen for your application, right? So it shows the action bar, the title of your application, and there is space for the menu. We'll start today with very simple menus. We'll use menu item. So I'm taking this item and I'm dragging it down to the menu, right? Before I do that, I want to show you the structure that was generated, just so you know where we start. We start with empty, with XML file that has basic information, right? So encoding version and schema from Android imported, right? With the root element called menu. And all other elements will be children of this one. As with everything else, items in the menu should have ID, because that's the way how we distinguish them. Let's call this main one. So ID for this item will be main one. Title, this is the text that is displayed. I will use this menu at the end to start my second activity that will display the list. So let's call it list. Your your item can have icon. You can have icons imported as resource, as drawable in your application. If you don't, or if you want to use something generic from Android, click on those three dots. Then from Android, you can select all kinds of icons. Let's find something that looks like a list. Maybe this one. Now, by default, your menu only shows text. You can change this option, how this is rendered, using show as action. A few options. Never means that it is never shown on the action bar. You can select that you want to display this item when there is a room for it. So that's a situation when you have more than one item in your list, and only selected is displayed as an action on the top. You can select always, and then turns into something like that. You can select with text, and then if there is a room, depending on the configuration, there will be text on the bottom showing the name of the option. And collapsing with action view will kind of disappear if this is associated with action view. This one is not, right? So, sorry. Let's leave it like right now like that, right? So we will have a drop-down menu that is triggered by those three dots, by the overflow menu. Of course, it's complaining that I hard-coded the name, the title for my option. We can resolve that moving this text into strings, right, as we did in previous weeks. I will leave it like, right now like that. So this is the definition, right? I can have more items, right? I can add more items here. Each of them will have own ID and so on, right? I don't want them because I will be using only one item today. So this is my design. If I run my application right now, I will do that. The menu won't be visible. Why? Because this is just a definition, right? I said that this is a menu. I didn't really say where I want to display it. And I'm doing this step. I'm connecting the menu to my application, sorry, using the code. Right, this is building, but I will switch to the main activity, the code, and I will add new function here. And this function is called onCreateOptionsMenu. OnCreateOptionsMenu. This function is similar to onCreate for the whole activity. Because what it does, it will point to the specific resource file. So first, menu is created with or by object of a class that is called menu inflator. I'm quite often using this term, right, to inflate the view. It means to instantiate all the elements, right? So we need a menu inflator. We'll call it I, and we get this object from the activity. And this object will inflate our menu based on the resource that we just created, right? So based on our menu.mainMenu. The second parameter to this call is the menu that is sent to us from the activity, right? So onCreateOptionsMenu sends us an object. This object right now is empty, right? It's a placeholder. And we can instantiate this, we can add elements to this menu. And the final thing, we have to return true to say that we've done our work, right? That will, I think this is working. That will create a menu, will display it. As you can guess, this menu won't work yet. Right, here it is. We can show it and we can dismiss it, but we cannot do it much more than that because at that point we don't know what the option will do, right? We have to attach the handler. The same way that you can add button and without the handler button is clickable, but it's not doing anything, right? The same thing is with menu. Function that we have to add is on option item selected. On options item selected, this is the function that is handling clicks for the options menu, for this main menu that we have on our page. Menu usually has more than one item, more than one option, so we have to distinguish it, right? And we'll do that with switch statement. We'll get the ID from the item that was selected, that triggered this function. And we'll check if this is our item. So I'm checking if this item that triggered on options item selected is item that I created in the menu. What I will do right now, because I don't have the second activity, I will just show a toast to show that it's working. Toast is the small bubble on the bottom with the text that appears and then automatically disappears. Toast dot make text. The first parameter is the context. The second parameter is the text that you want to display. So it is working. And the third parameter is duration. This class provides you with two constants, short and long. Post dot length long, length short. You can select one of them. And then the final step is calling method that is called show that will display the toast. We have to return value. And because we are successful, we are saying that it's true. Default. We'll call on option item selected from the parent. Now, if you have an application that has several activities and they all share the same menu, what you can do, you can create a parent activity like this one that is creating the menu and has on option item selected, that is handling the clicks in the menu, and you can inherit from this class. This way, you don't have to repeat the same code in each activity. It will be handled by the parent, right? Because default implementation in the child will be calling the method from the parent. Also, when you're inflating the menu in the child, you may also add some options manually. Menu has function add, and this function, this function will add a new option to the new item to the menu, right? So you still can adjust the menu in the child class. Okay. Ready to test? Here is my menu. I'm clicking on the list, and I have the bubble on the bottom saying that it's working. And my next step will be adding the pop-up menu. And I will associate the pop-up menu with the entire layout. So whenever I click, wherever I click on my screen, I want the context menu to pop up. To do that, first I need to give ID to my layout. Because I need to associate on-click method with it, right? So ID for the layout will be layout, not very creative. I will jump into onCreate, into the first method that I have in my class. I will find view by ID, and that will be my layout. And I will add on-click listener to this layout. Okay. To make it easy, my class will implement on-click listener. Which means that I need to implement the method onClick. Right? And then in set onClick listener, I can simply say this. So my activity implements view onClick listener. I'm setting this activity as click listener for the layout, and now I have to implement the method. Right? I added method onClick using ID, right, resolving the problem. And now we have to implement that part. Sorry?
Can you go back to second?
Uh-huh. Sure. Are we ready? Okay. Now, my onClick method will trigger the pop-up. Right? So first, I need to create a new object of pop-up menu. This is something that don't have a placeholder in my activity. Right? So it's a new pop-up menu. It requires context and the view because it's associated with a view. And layout, as you may remember from the lecture, is also a type of a view. It's a menu, so we have to inflate it. So we need an inflator. And this inflator will be coming from our new object of the pop-up menu. Now let's create different. There is nothing wrong with reusing menu if you want to show the same options, just in a different way. But right now I want to create a new resource just to show you the steps again. Right. So right-click on the menu folder, new menu resource. Pop-up menu is the name of the file. I will add item pop-up 1. I'm not spending too much time on this because it's just to show you that you can have multiple menus even within the same activity, right? I'm saving this, going back to my code. I got inflate requires a reference to the menu that we want to inflate. In this case, it will be a pop-up menu. And the object, so pop-up.get menu will return the reference that we need. Our inflator did its job, took the description, instantiated all the options, and we are ready to show the pop-up. And again, this menu will work, means it will show, but right now it's not associated with any actions. It's showing on the top because that's the corner of my view, right? If I would associate it with the hello world, it would be attached to the label. It's always glued to the view that you're passing as a parameter, right? In this case, it's a layout. Now, to be able to serve clicks in this menu, we need to implement another interface, and this interface is called on menu item click listener from the pop-up menu. On menu item click listener pop-up menu. The fastest way to resolve the issue, right? To find out what methods do we need to implement, click on the red bulb, implement methods. The highlighted one is your mandatory method that you have to implement, right? So on menu item click. Here it is. Structure for this method will be very similar to this structure. Again, you may have more than one option, right? So you're using switch statement. We'll show the text by default, right? This one will be pop. Didn't save it. Why we don't see it? Let's build everything. That's interesting. But showing the ID in the editor, but it wasn't synchronized with the XML. Now it is. Just showing it here. Well. Okay, so I have my function, right? We can change the text just to be sure that this is the right menu, right? Right function. Play. I'm clicking anywhere in my view, item, and sorry?
How did you resolve this pop-up one issue? So the external one.
How did I what?
How did you fix that problem with pop-up one?
Oh, I went to the pop-up menu and I made sure that the ID is set correctly. What did I forgot to do? I didn't in on-click presenting the menu. I didn't set the handler. I set menu item, set on menu item click listener. This is crucial step because without that, I have the listener, I have the menu, but they don't really see each other. Right, so it's running, click, pop-up is working. Third type of the menu is the most complex one because it requires an extra objects to be created. This menu, as I told you, is kind of a crossover between the pop-up and the option menu, the main menu. And they call it in the documentation a context menu. Right? If you think about the naming, it's not probably the best one because context menu, for what we remember from desktops, is something like a pop-up, right? Showing up where you click. While this one is triggered by some action on the control, but it's presented in a different way. So let's create the context menu. Now, context menu can be floating like the pop-up menu, or we can have an action mode associated with some item in our design. So we'll start right now from creating the action mode and action mode callback. right? So I will add 2 new elements to my class. Private action mode and action mode fallback. Fallback, new action mode fallback. We have to implement a few methods. Now, this type of menu should be associated with views like lists or grids. I will show you quickly the implementation here. And then I will show you how to create a list. And then we can combine these two. The idea is following. You have a list or you have a grid, and you want to perform action on one or more items. And this action usually is triggered by either long click or some kind of selection in your list, right? Sometimes it may be swipe. This will open a new menu in the context of the whole window. So let's see how we can do that. On create action mode, this is the function that will inflate the menu. So again, the idea will be the same, right? We need to get the menu. We have the placeholder here in the parameter menu.get item, but sorry, not menu, mode get menu inflator. Mode is our context in this case. This is kind of a layover of the application, right? We are adding a new element, partially transparent, so we see only the menu that is popping up. Hi.inflate. We can use the same pop-up menu that we defined. So let's reuse this. And the menu is the second parameter. We return true because it was successful. We don't do anything in on prepare action mode, but we'll have to we have to do something in on item clicked. That's our handler. Switch item.getID. Repeating the same structure, right? Case r.id.popup1 post we need a context, so get parent will give us this context. It will be the activity, and the text context is working. Post long. We served the menu, so we can return true. The default for us will be return false because it means that we didn't do anything. And on destroy, we'll set action mode to null. To attach this, to attach this action mode, I would need to add a new element to my design. I need a view that can be associated with that. So let me know when you're ready, and then we'll change the design. Ready? Okay, so let's modify our activity main. Add the list view. Let's also make this list view smaller. Layout height, much constraint. It will be below the hello world text. Let's change ID to list view, so we know what it is. Underscore dynamic doesn't tell us anything, right? I added a constraint. So there is this dot on the top. I connected it with the dot on the bottom of the of the list. Another way, if you don't want to work with dots, make sure that your list and text view both have IDs. And you can switch to the long view, go to constraints. Hello. Yeah, hello. There should be a list of constraints here. For some reason, they're not generating correctly. But there is one that is called top to bottom off, right? When your list is selected, this one should be set to ID of your text view. And that creates, that creates the connection. I don't know why it is rendering this way. Just checking if it's set here, it is set. So we have new view added to our design. Now what we need to do, we need to, sorry, we need to modify this view. We need to go to on create, here it is, because we'll modify a few things. First, let's find our list view by ID. Find view by ID, RID. List view. We can define how we want to select from this list. And there are a few options. Let's take a look at them. List view dot choice mode, multiple modal, none, or single. Let's say we'll use multiple modal. That also means that we have to create a new listener, right? So list dot set multi-choice mode listener. This is connecting our mode with the view. New multi-choice listener. Now we can connect two pieces that we have. Item check state, sorry, item check state changed. This will be your action when like adding it to some other list and things like that. We'll leave it empty right now. On create action mode, this is the place where we'll inflate the menu. In on item clicked, where is it? Here, you can implement the actual action, right? So things that we did here, we can move to there, right? We can take this on create action mode, right? We are inflating the menu. on item selected, item clicked. We are reacting to the click. And so on, right? So you can associate the menu with the selected view this way, or another option. Instead of doing that, instead of using the select multi-choice choice mode listener, you can trigger the same action with the mode using set on long click listener, for example, right? And then new on long click listener. In on long click, you will check if the action mode is not empty, right? Not null. That means that there is somebody using, or you're in the action mode. So false. Otherwise, you would create a new action mode. Start action mode with your callback, and that will also trigger the menu, right? And your view p dot set selected true and return. You have two options, right? In both cases, you will have the same final result. The context menu will open when you interact with the view. I'm adding both just to show you how you can connect that, right? If you're using long click listener, this will trigger context menu for the whole view. When you're using the choice mode, this will allow you to select multiple items from the list, and then open the context menu and do one action for all of them, right? Let's play. Let me just check one thing. This is pop-up. I'm not sure if my list will work right now because it's empty. So since we are talking about the list, let's add something to the list. Let's show some items in the list. What I will do is on create. On create is here. I will create a new variable, private array list. I will store strings. Potentially, you can store anything there, right? I will call it data. On create, I will add some elements to this list. Right, so my data add item 1, data add item 2, item 3 and 4. I have 4 items. What I want to do, I want to display those items in my list, right? List is quite specific view. Lists, grids, they all share those properties. You cannot simply, click on the list and hard code the values, the same way that you did with the labels, for example. Lists are connected with underlying data structure, and they're connected through the class that is called adapter. Adapter translates from the data structure, from something that you have in your code, in your list, whatever the class or string that you have there, to the elements, to the structure that is displayed in UI. Right? So they can extract information from your data structure and display them in a predefined template. And that's what we are going to do right now. We'll create an adapter, and we'll be using a basic array adapter. Array adapter, it needs to know what type it will be processing. In our case, it will be a string. So let's create a new array adapter. Context, always. The second parameter is a template that we'll use. I'll break the line so you can see the whole line. Now you can define your own template. This is template for a single row in the list, but we can also use something from Android that is ready to be used. Android.r.layout.simple list item 1. The last parameter, our data. We have adapter, we have list, right? We found it by ID. Now we have to select, we have to set the adapter for the list. We have our items, right? Now, long click opens a new menu. See, it's black. When I long press on the item in the list, I have the menu, because there is nothing attached to it, it breaks. But let's see what is the... Let's see what was the exception. And the context is not set correctly. I think our try to. Let's try this. I'll have to check why we are missing context here. I can try also with this one. The result is the same. Okay, I will search why this is a problem here. We need context, but get base context gives us null. Right? Note to self, check why. I'll post this code for you, but we'll try to figure out why we don't get the context correctly here, right? But you see in this code, you see 3 ways of creating the menu, right? The options menu, that's the most common that you can find in your applications. The pop-up menu or the floating one that is triggered in your application when you interact with specific control, and the context menu that is associated with specific view, right? At the same time, I'm showing you how you can inflate or how you can create the array, the list view using hard-coded values, right? In this case, we are using array list, right? One question that I got in the previous lab was, okay, so if I want to start from the menu, I want to start new activity, what do I do? So let's do it quickly, and at the same time, we'll repeat the steps with the list one more time in separation, so you can repeat that in your assignments, right? You need lists there. Let's add new activity. So right-click on the app, new activity, and empty activity. Okay. Let's call this one my list activity. Finish. I have new class, and I should have also a new layout. And I will start with the layout. Layout is empty. I will add list one more time. Sorry, this one will be taking the whole screen, so I don't have to edit it in any ways in terms of constraints. I will change this ID to my list. And I will switch to the class right now and edit the class, right? So I will again add the data to display and add adapter and associate it with the list, right? So let's jump to my list activity. Let's add private array list string data new array list. Let's add some data, and you know what? We have 20 minutes, so let's use the same dummy data that we used before. Next step, we have to create the adapter, right? So array adapter, we need to tell what is the type that we are using. We are using string. I told you it can be any type. Adapter equals new array adapter. Context. Android R layout. Simple list item 1. Why I'm selecting this? Because it defines a row with the one label. And that's what I have in my data. Right? Now I need to find my list by ID, RID my list, and I need to set adapter. The easiest way would be to store this list view list equals list dot set adapter. And that will display elements in my list. If I want to open this activity from the main activity in one of the menus, I have to do 2 steps. One, I need to create an intent. Second, I need to call the method start activity. Let's do it if you're ready. Ready? I see that still people are typing. Good.
-3 is just red.
Sorry?
-3 is just red. That 100%. Maybe we need to check the other class.
You should have this imported. Okay, so I'm jumping into main activity. The question, which menu do we want to use? Let's use the main menu, okay? So let's use the option menu. Option menu is, class gets longer and longer. On options menu, item selected, find this method. And let's add 2 new lines to this method. First, we need to create an intent. Context my list activity.class. This is the class that we want to start. So we have the intent, we are saying what we want to do, and now let's execute the action, right? Start activity for the intent. That's it. Right, so if you want to use menu as your navigation part, probably most natural, you need your function. Each option has ID. For each ID, you're doing you create intent, you start activity with this intent. Right, obviously the difference will be in the class that you pass over here, right? So if I want to, if I would like to have another option in this menu that will show me maps, I can do the same thing, right? We are working with the main menu, so let's find it. We can add new item. Here it is. Let's use ID maps. Maps. We can select icon for it. Something that looks like maps. There is IC dialog map or IC menu map. And let's say that we want to show this if there is a room, right? It means that we'll have this nice icon at the top. Why not? Okay, I'm saving this. I'm jumping back to my main menu and I'm adding a new case statement, right? Case RID maps. Then I want to create a new intent. Map intent, new intent, action show. Intent action, not show, but view. And we need to pass URI. URI parse, PO 00 to equal what? CN tower. Start activity map intent. I will have two options in my menu. One will be as an action, so with the icon on top. The other one will be in the overflow menu, and that will start my second activity. Okay? Running the application. Move it so you can play with the. So if I click on the overflow button, right? So there's 3 dots. I have a list. I click on that. I have my second activity. I can go back. If I click on maps, the maps are showing. And it's even finding the CN tower location, right? Then going back, I'm going back to my original place. So those are the tricks that you can use in your assignment, right? Creating navigation with the menu, or you can use buttons if that's what will work with your design, right? You can use lists because right now we are building mockups. You can hard code the values for your list. Just make sure that it makes sense in terms of what your application is for. And that's it for today. Right, so I will stop this. And I will also stop recording.